people are feeling a little bit more comfortable about speaking about the life review. The life review is definitely an important theme in the outer states of consciousness, especially the near-death experience. So what all of this ties together is the entities explaining, the entities showing this learning and profundity, and talking about the cosmic love and the unity of experience. So they're kind of explaining what's happening, and so what all of these millions of reports of altered states of consciousness are suggesting is that there is meaning, there is a life mission, we're doing something with these reincarnations, or with these life experiences, with these earth experiences. Alright, so the next item here is the space-time transcendence. So what a lot of people say about these altered states of consciousness is that when they go to the other side, when they have the experience, they realize that time does not work the same, neither does space. So a lot of people, they don't have bodies in this other side, in this experience. So what they say is that they think about something and they are there. They look at themselves, sometimes they see bodies, and Robert Monroe speaks about this. Robert Monroe is the pioneer of out-of-body experiences, and he is the founder of the Monroe Institute, and he called it the second body. And there's anecdotes in his books where sometimes limbs can be stretched, sometimes he only saw the upper part of his body, sometimes people have a full body, sometimes they say what. So the Monroe Institute now is composed of a lot of people who are studying these phenomena, who go through out-of-body experiences. They explain that if you need a body in the other side, you will create a body, you will manifest, just like you can manifest scenes or places and so on and so forth. It ties with the fifth concept here of hyperdimensionality. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. People say they go, so they call it here multiverse. So this whole idea, I've covered this in the channel, the whole idea, the only way for the multiverse to exist it is that reality is not as physical or as solid as we might think, and it's all mental. So if it's all mental, there's endless possibilities, and that seems to be what happens when people go outside of the body. As I explained, these both experiences happen when we are not tethered to our brains. So it seems to be in this realm of non-physicality. So another thing that they talk about here is the unity of experience and the quote-unquote cosmic love. So one of the things that I go on over and over is this idea that it all seems to be more positive and more amazing than any fantasy, than any religion. When we think about religion, we think about some of the Eastern religions based on dogma, based on penitence, based on discipline. And this is not what seems to be the underlying reality. The underlying reality seems to be about this quote-unquote love. So this is something very hard to understand, because what they explain is that it is not the love that we think about when we are on this earth, on this planet. It's a different type of love. Some people say that this love is literal energy, pure energy. So all of these 5 items are what it correlates. As I said, just this is specifically to Eben Alexander's experience. We talk about this cosmic love and unity of experience. Everything is part of there's a singular force, there's a singular mind, we're all living in the same mind, so on and so forth. There's a solipsism. That was one of my latter videos that people were talking about. So there's an item here just specific to NDE, according to Ian Alexander, going through learning and profundity. And there's this other one which is called about entities, menacing, divine, beautiful guy. So they feel when people go through altered states of consciousness, they say there was this presence, there was this being which was really strong, but he was loving or divine in nature, or so on and so forth. So this is some of the words that they use So according to even Alexander, this happens in the NDE experience. But I've gone through a lot of reports from these experiences. So if we just go really quick, we see the other study on the DMT and NDE correlations. We can see that there's a lot of things that tie together with this one, but there's a lot of things that are a little bit different. So harmony and unity, so it's the same here as this unitive experience. So it says over here cosmic love. So we have this idea of cosmic love. As I said, we have neurologists and neurosurgeons talking about cosmic love. I have another one, I forget the name, but I made a video about it. I'm gonna link it somewhere below. So it says that he has feelings of joy. So this love and this joy probably can be the same thing. Feelings of joy, pleasantness, so heightened senses, harmony, unity. So all this love that they explain. Perhaps this study was done a little bit before this previous one. So this near-death experience phenomenon has been blowing up in latter years, and people are more comfortable speaking about how they felt quote-unquote love. Before, perhaps it wasn't very scientific to speak about quote-unquote love. So we have these other things here. So they do speak about encountering mystical being or presence. So in both of them, the NDE marked as red here and the DMT marked as purple. In both of them, in different experiences, it occurs. People encounter these other beings. For even Alexander, he says it was only during his near-death experience. Some people don't go through the full quote-unquote breakthrough experience while they are in psychedelics. They just go to a room or they see fractals, so they feel the love, the pleasantness, but they don't really have a very specific thing that happens to them during the experience. So just like even Alexander says, there's no theme unique to DMT, but there are themes that are unique to DMT. People who push further into this boundary, they go into a more in-depth experience where they experience some of the other aspects of NDEs, which we have here in this other research right here. The bright light that happens in NDE. The biggest theme of the NDE is meeting this light, which some people correlate to the idea of quote-unquote God. So this happens in the same. This love is this light is the love, and the love is the light. It's the same thing. It's the energy. Seems to be something going on here. So well, I'm talking about this cosmic love and this unitive experience. Why do people just feel this, and in other instances they are explained by these entities, these guides, these light beings, these angels, if you want to call them, these mystical being or presences? Some people see these guides as deceased relatives, which is right here, religious or as a religious spirit. A lot of people in near-death experiences, they say, "Oh, I saw Jesus, and Jesus explained to me." And a lot of them say this specific thing. He didn't tell me that he was Jesus. I didn't even see his face, but I knew it was Jesus, or I knew it was an angel, or I knew it was some sort of a more because he was menacing, he was very strong, so on and so forth. So it's not that people actually see Jesus, or what we understand as Jesus is that they experience something as a guide or something. They experience another consciousness which communicates to them that is all about understanding this singularity, that everything is about, all of it is one, we are one, and that everything that matters and the whole thing, a lot of people get revealed the purpose of life. So this is why it's learning and profundity. So this is why even Alexander said, I came back with a message. A lot of people say they told me to come back and to explain what's happening and so on and so forth. A lot of people say, I don't remember everything, I don't remember the biggest thing, which seems as if people are making the whole thing up. But this is millions of reports according to the latter scientific consensus statement. And if you add the reports from psychedelic experiences, it's probably more than that. So we're talking about millions of reports that are saying the same thing. So these entities explain how this is what is actually happening, what it's all about. So as we start going into the research, we're getting a fuller picture of what's actually going on. Now, I'm speaking about here about I've gone through a lot of stories, a lot of altered state of consciousness reports and stories, and a lot of scientific research and studies on these things. So I'm just trying to put the puzzles together and bring about a larger picture, and I'm doing this in a more organized manner in my writings. But right now in these videos, I'm just gonna go all over the place and try to put things together to make a more coherent argument. I know a lot of people just think I'm rambling, and which I am, but at the same time I am trying to put all of these things together. All right, so what are the other items here in this graph? So synesthesia, just and what they call it here is speed of thoughts or heightened senses. So what people say with this synesthesia is a different type of consciousness. It's a hyper consciousness. People hear colors. They hear colors or they see sounds. So how can you see sounds? How can you hear colors? You can, because it's different senses in our physical material world. But in this heightened state of consciousness, people have their senses heightened, so they experience different things. So it's an air-like world. So in the near-death experience, they experience gardens, so they experience lakes, they experience mountains. And one thing that is specific to this is that they say that all of these items in the world are alive. They shine with light from within. There's no light outside of things like we see here in the sun. The sun creates light and everything is reflected. But in these air-like worlds, everything is vibrating with alive, with this energy, with this quote-unquote love. But the whole scene, the whole environment is made of love. So in other experiences, both in NDE and 5-MeO of DMT, and I think we have it right here, there is the idea that people go to different places, different planets, different forms of living, forms of existence, which is also very interesting. So there is this void. This happens a lot in near-death experience. People go into what they call a quote-unquote velvety void, or this full darkness, and that sounds very scary to happen to people when they die. But in reality, what people say is that in this void, they are very comfortable. And this is like the initial creation or whatever, something of that nature. There's a phase where they are in this void, but this void is comforting, this void is loving, this void is a place of comfort. So this is the item that is mainly in NDEs and not so much in the DMT experience. So the live review here we have at the bottom in the previous research, which only happens sometimes in DMT. Even in NDEs is not as common according to this chart, but I mean, I guess these are some of the variations and the variables in studies, because the live review is actually a very specific thing. It could be also that people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it before when this happened. People are feeling a little bit more comfortable about speaking about the live review. The live review is definitely an important theme in the outer states of consciousness, especially the near-death experience. So what all of this ties together is the entities explaining, the entities showing this learning and profundity, and talking about the cosmic love and the unity of experience. So they're kind of explaining what's happening. And so what all of these millions of reports of altered states of consciousness are suggesting is that there is meaning, there is a life mission, we're doing something with these reincarnations, or with these life experiences, with these earth experiences. And later on, as I said, this is why I'm really interested about going through all of this research. He explains specifically why it seems that we're here, how all the lives come together, and we're working on a larger project, and so on and so forth. He goes into each of these. I don't know if I'm going to cover all of them, but I'm going to cover some of them for sure. It gives us a fuller picture of what's going on. So this is loved ones. People see people who passed away, and they're in different realms or in different places, and all of them amidst them. This is a very hard thing to understand, and I have my own theories regarding the deceased loved ones. Something that, for example, Tom Campbell, the creator of My Big Toe, former NASA scientist who was part also of the Monroe Institute, what he explains, what he talks about. So this is a former NASA scientist, NASA physicist, who speaks about meeting deceased people on the other side. So let's just understand that we don't have crazy people. We don't have. This is not about just wackos or people who are into entheogens or psychedelics. These are people in the scientific and medical fields talking about these things. So he explains that this meeting with the deceased ones is more for the person to understand than the actual deceased people waiting for them. But when you think about it, if everything is together, if we have no identities really with this ego dissolution that says here, the way that they manage here, this ego dissolution is the separation from the body. If we're not as real, if our egos, our identities are not as real as we think, and they are more like clothing, more like tools for experience, we don't really exist. But at the same time, everything is part of the larger intelligence, of this unity of experience. So this, let's call it God to make it easier. I don't like to call it God, but sometimes I will have to just call it God because it just makes it easier. If we are all God, if God is everything, when we go to the other side and we want to talk to our loved ones, God is everyone and everything. So we being part of God, and for some reason these entities and this profundity and this love is trying to make us feel comfortable, there's no reason why we couldn't talk to the loved ones, to the previously deceased people, or interact with them at any point that we want. And this is something that Tom Campbell repeats over and over. He says this specific thing. We can't contact them because we're all part of the same thing. There is no separation. It's a unity of experience right here. A very specific part of the near-death experience is the threshold of no return. This is also here in the previous one, which calls the border point of no return. Happens a lot in NDEs, does not happen in DMT, which means that for the near-death experience, or for the passing on to another realm or point of existence, there is a specific process which is guided with a quote-unquote beautiful guide. It is guided, it is structured, it is part of a larger theme, it is part of a larger purpose. This threshold, a lot of people are told you may go back and this will happen, your studies are going to show this way, you're going to have a miraculous healing. Sort of like in the case of even Alexander, the one who is explaining all of this, who had these both experiences, and now we have research and science saying how full neurological recovery from the meningitis associated with this, with even Alexander's near-death experience. A lot of what's happening here is that the medical fields and the experts are no longer able to not take into account the near-death experience with these surprising, let's call it miraculous healings that happen to people. So as we see, it's all together. So these entities, they tell them, it is your choice, you may go back. Some people are told you need to go back, it's not your time. Some people are told you have a choice, so on and so forth. And they know that if they cross a gate, or if they cross a lake, or if they cross a bridge in one of these quote-unquote Earth-like worlds that they find themselves in, where they are met with their deceased loved ones, they know that they're not going to be able to go back. So what this means is that there is a structure thing going on. There seems to be some sort of meaning, some sort of structure, some sort of specific thing that we're doing here with these guides and learning and everything. We're having this experience in a hyperdimensional sort of multiverse thing. There's no ego. This is a facade, and even Alexander goes later saying that this is some sort of a facade. Our egos, which is what a lot of people who go through altered states of consciousness end up saying and understanding. But as we can see, this newer research is just stacking the data and letting us know that no, it's not that people are hallucinating the same thing when they go through the psychedelic or the near-death experience. It is that when we go outside our brains and we go into the delta brainwave state, where our brains are not active and we are acting perhaps as pure consciousness or outside of our bodies, there is a world that is very specific, very structured. There is a system that is happening, and there is more to life than this physical material world. Thank you so much for watching. If you find any value in the content that I'm putting forward, please consider supporting the project through Patreon on the links below. Likewise, you can like, share, subscribe, comment, or follow me on other social media so more people have access to this information. Thank you so much for watching, and maybe I'll see you in the next one.